Good afternoon, everyone. You are in the spotlight with Brian Gardner for this Friday, this Football Blitz Friday show here on this Friday, January the 29th, 2016. Good to have you all here for our third of three shows this week. Apology, I got kind of distracted there, and then I realized that I don't have my headset on. So if you all bear with me for just a second here, I just realized I never plugged in the headset. So you get a little insight into how in the spotlight works here. This is why it's live podcasting. So airhead moment. You know it's Friday when we do this. So airhead moment here. All right, let's get this back in here. Hopefully we get this back on and running here. Okay, just give me 1 second here. I apologize for this, folks. All right, so now we got the headsets on. Now we're all good to go. My apologies for that. Any of you out there ever have an airhead moment? That was an airhead moment for me. Oh, wait, I felt like something was missing the entire time I'm starting the show. I'm like, what's missing? What's missing? Oh yeah, the headset. Because we haven't been using the headsets very long. I don't only make maybe the last 2 weeks I've been using the headset, so not used to it yet. But lately I've been doing at least I've been doing a good job of remembering it, considering I never used it that much before. So, but anyway, my apologies. So let's get this. We got off on the wrong foot for this last Football Blitz show here. All right, so let me welcome you all in again. Good afternoon, everyone. You are in the spotlight with Brian Gardner for this Friday, January the 29th, 2016. This Football Blitz in the Spotlight 4-on-1 Football Blitz show coming at you on this Friday afternoon, our final Football Blitz show of the season. See, now that sounds better. That's how I usually start the show. See, I got rattled. I realized I forgot something, and then I had a massive brain fart. So hey, live streaming, live broadcasting, stuff like that can happen. So my apologies for that. Hope your Friday is treating you well here as we approach the weekend and all that it brings. Hope everything's going well for you all today or here on this Friday afternoon. Again, this is our final Football Blitz show. This will be the last time we'll be joining you for any daytime show, unless there's something, we have to switch up or something. And last time we do a football show. Any further football covers that we have will be on our usual primetime shows here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube on Tuesday and Thursdays at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. So, for those of you that want us to cover the Super Bowl, the fallout of the Super Bowl, the aftermath of the Super Bowl, the off season, the NFL, college football draft, all that stuff. You're gonna have to tune into our Tuesday and Thursday primetime shows for all that. This again, our last Football Blitz show. This basically, I think, the same framework we used last year. We ended, I think, the week before the Super Bowl, and then kind of that was kind of like our transition. That's how we did it. So, really, it's just it's in my opinion, it's just the best way to do it. And then we give you a little bit of a Super Bowl preview today, and then we give you a little bit of one on Tuesday's primetime show, and then of course we'll talk about what happens at the Super Bowl right after it on that Tuesday primetime show. So, a lot of people are like, well, you could still do a show next Friday. You could, because a lot can happen between now and next Friday, injuries and different stories. Because we all know next week when everybody arrives for the Super Bowl in Santa Clara, the media will start hyping certain things. They'll find stories that, from years ago to talk about. And, it's a media blitz. We all know that. And, there are things that come up that we were talking about. You know what? I'm not saying that those things won't come up, but I don't think we can get a whole show. Because here's the thing, okay? Really, in my estimation, we spend more time talking about the actual stuff on the field than we do off the field. Whenever we're talking about stuff off the field, usually really bad stuff, okay? I don't want to waste time talking about stuff that's been dug up from a few years ago that the media digs up just because they want to get sound bites from players or coaches or, I don't want to do that. And honestly, I don't even think that would sustain a show anyway. And because there's no games who wants to talk about, what are we going to have to sustain the show? You want to at least have an hour-long show. We wouldn't even be able to barely do an hour if we just made it about what media week brings, week before Super Bowl brings, injuries, stuff like that. No, we can't really do a show like that. So that's why I decided this is the best time. We finish off the week before the Super Bowl because we can talk about what already happened the championship weekend, and then give you a brief Super Bowl preview, and then that's it, and then we're done. And I think that's the best. And that's enough for a show. And then, next week, like I said, if we did a show, we might be lucky if we get 45 minutes. It's not really worth it. So I hope people understand. I know some people don't. I already gotten some mails from people saying, I look, I understand. I understand completely. I know some people, and I know there's some people that just tune into our Football Blitz show, and then there's some people that don't tune into it at all, and they tune into our primetime shows. So that's why I'm trying to start, because I know how big of a deal Super Bowl is. I'm trying to appease both sides. We give you a little bit of a Super Bowl preview here on the last Football Blitz show, and then we'll give a Super Bowl preview on this Tuesday night primetime show this coming Tuesday. Therefore, all of our fan bases pleased one way or the other. So, but before we get started here, whenever last year at this time when I wrapped up the Football Blitz show for the season, number one question was, were you going to continue it next year? And at that time, I said I anticipated continuing it, and I anticipate continuing it again for next season. I don't know if it'll be the same framework. I don't know, because I've always said this, and I think a lot of you know this. Those of you that have listened or watched our show for a long time, even before we came here to Hangouts and YouTube, a lot of you know it's this to me is very difficult. Doing these football shows, not because I don't like doing them. I like doing them. Although I don't like doing it on my. I can host a show on my own, but it's very difficult to host a show on my own because it's just me talking. It's easier to have somebody to work off of. It just is. You look at the best radio shows, the best podcasts, they have somebody else out there with them. So it's kind of hard to do this like that. But the biggest problem is the time. Because we have to, I choose to do this during the day because I don't want to devote another night to doing another show. Because I want to be able to spend some time with my wife, with my family, and work and everything. And it's too hard, I'm able to set aside some time between work and everything to do this show. But it sometimes it's very hard. There's a lot of things, things you don't plan on happening, and sometimes you end up starting later. Sometimes you have to push it up earlier. And I recognize it's very hard for our audience. Sometimes a lot of our audience likes to watch us live. And a lot of them can't do that when we're on at 2:00 in the afternoon on a Friday afternoon. And I understand that. And, that's a lot of things I weigh it's a lot of the things I weighed when I decided to do this last year. And when I decided to bring it back this year, and I'll weigh all these things again when I decide if I want to bring it back next year, or do I want to do something different with it? And we'll see. It's always a case by case thing. Right now I would tell you that I anticipate bringing it back in some form. Does that mean that it'll be back like it's been this year? Does it mean it'll be back during the day? I don't know. One of the reasons why we changed it from In the Spotlight Football Friday to In the Spotlight Football Blitz was because I wanted to be able to do it on different days of the week in case we don't, hey, I have a work meeting on Friday. Cannot do it on Friday. Okay, let's do it on Thursday. Let's do it on Wednesday. But that, as you all know, we only, I think, did it on a Thursday maybe once or twice. And we never really did it most of the time. We just did it on a Friday, unless there was a holiday, and then we did it on like a Wednesday or something. So, I really don't know how it's going to work next year. But the answer to most of your questions, most of you asked about whether we'd be coming back. With the Football Blitz. Obviously, we'll keep the primetime shows going, no doubt about it. But will we be coming back for another season of Football Blitz? I'll let you all know. Right now, I'd say yes. But it might be yes with changes. I don't know. So that's all I can really say about that right now. I'll say this at the end of the show, but I'll say it right here. I want to thank those of you that do watch the show live. It was very difficult this year because we had the transition from TalkShoe to Google Hangouts into YouTube and the Podbean and back to there's a lot of things going on. But you all stuck with us. We do appreciate that. Thank you. And I know for this show, especially was very difficult. So thank you so much for that. We do appreciate that. And to those that did watch this show live on Fridays, or whatever during the season or listen to it later on or watch it later on, whatever the case may be, thank you. I appreciate that. It's, your loyalty, your feedback, everything is just fantastic. So thank you so much for that. We do appreciate that. So I'll say that again at the end of the show. But all right. So here we go. We don't have a lot to talk about. This will be a quick show, obviously, because we only have 2 games to look back on from last weekend. And then we have the Super Bowl to preview. And then that's it. There's nothing, we don't have to talk about any coaching changes. We've already done that in the past few weeks. There's no college football. There's none of that. And you know what's funny is I've said this over the last couple of weeks. We've been doing the questions and answer stuff. We brought that segment back at the end of the show. And I said that I kind of want to do it all the way through until we were done with the Football Blitz shows. Well, I don't even think we can do a question and answer segment today because really there wasn't any questions that or comments that were sent in to be addressed that didn't already have something to do with what we're already going to talk about today, which is championship weekend games and obviously the Super Bowl. So, you know, I mean, if the material is there, it's there. If it's not, it's not, and it's not. So I don't think we're going to really do a Q&A segment at the end of the show like we've been doing the last couple of weeks because I don't think we have enough to. Now, if somebody happens to send me something during the show, then fine, you know, we'll go with it. But if something worthwhile, we'll go with it. But otherwise, I don't anticipate doing it. So it's going to be a very quick show today for our last Football Blitz. So let's get underway here. As always, if you'd like to participate in the show, have your voice heard, you can email us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. And please remember to use the hashtag itspotlight411, hashtag ITS5. It represents the 5th anniversary on the air as a podcast, or you can use hashtag ITS Football Blitz because this is the Football Blitz show for us. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook. And then make sure you like our fan page. All right, so we got all that out of the way. Let's get right down to it. And as I said, we'll start by looking back at last weekend, championship weekend. And, you know, I've been saying this. I say this every year. One of the reasons why you like the first 2 weekends of the NFL playoffs, if you're a fan, is because you have more opportunities for good games. You know, you have 4 games. You have 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. More opportunities for good games, right? And then once you get to championship weekend, you only got 2 games. If they both end up sucking, well, they suck. And then you end up looking back at the weekend going, that was a waste. If one of them ends up being good and the other one ends up being bad, then you're like, well, at least I got that one game. And that's kind of what we got on Sunday, was one fantastic game, down to the wire, nail-biting game, and another which really was just, you know, if you still were watching it after 8 o'clock, God bless you, because I watched only because I have to. I don't like to talk about a game that I haven't watched. If I can, if it's unavoidable, I will. But look, we'll talk about let's talk about the first game first. Let's just go in order here because just for continuity purposes. Obviously, I think we all knew, you know, the first game was the game that a lot of us, you know, from a legacy standpoint, from a historic standpoint in the game, we were all looking forward to. You know, what was the 17th or 18th time that Manning and Brady meet. You know, so much about this game. You know, the Patriots trying to get back to the Super Bowl to defend their title. You know, Manning trying to get back in what could be his last season. And then, you know, the added layer of, if you think about it, for the Patriots, they let the Broncos host this game. They let them, you know, not only because that loss at Miami in the last week of the season that swung this game in the direction of Denver, but because Denver beat them late in the season with Brock Osweiler on their and that, you know, so it really, you know, that you had that added layer, Denver's defense, Patriots and their offense, and, you know, getting healthier, and there was a lot of things in play here. There's a lot of compelling storytelling, compelling angles here, and I think when you look back at this game, it's going to be a classic. You look back at this game, and what was really crucial was the fact that Denver was able to, for the most part, play from out in front of New England for most of this game. Now, you know, clearly home field helps, and we all talked about it. We talked about it all season. It was one of the most compelling aspects to the season was, you know, if anybody in the AFC, especially Denver, who really many people thought could be the best team in the AFC, you wanted to have that game. You did not want that game to be in New England. You do not want the AFC going through New England if you can avoid it. And Denver was able to make sure that did not happen because of their own play, but also because of the Patriots' own struggles down the stretch. So home field did help, but here's the thing. When you look back at this game, three things I think were the keys to Denver winning this game. And none of them were home field, although home field did help. Number one, playing from out in front. I don't care if you're only winning by a point. I don't care if whatever. I don't care how little you're winning by. Winning by playing from out in front, especially at home, makes a huge bit of difference. Especially if you're a team like Denver, who obviously you got Peyton Manning at the quarterback position, managing the game very well, but also you can't get a lot out of him like you used to. Okay, he's just going to manage the game, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, you're not looking for a lot out of him. You're basically saying we're going to win this game with our defense because that's the way we got to win this game. When you're under that kind of strategy, when you're working with that kind of strategy, then what it really becomes is this. It becomes a situation where if you're relying on your defense, you're always better off working from out in front. And they were out in front of this game the entire game. And that helps your defense because they can take more chances because they know you're in the game or you're out or you're winning the game, and it's less pressure on them. They can take more chances. Your defensive coordinator can take more chances, and that makes a big difference. A big difference. You can be more aggressive, and you can do that on offense too. But for the defensive purposes, which I think was the key to this game for Denver anyway, it helps. Now, so that helped. The defense obviously. Being able, the switching up of coverages in this game by Denver was huge in this game. New England never got a sense of what Denver was going to try to do, and that's the key with New England. Remember, one of the reasons why New England's so good, why Bill Belichick is so good, and Tom Brady's so good, is they make adjustments. They make them on the fly, and especially at halftime. Best second half adjustment team in the league is New England. But if they don't know what's coming from play-to-play coverage-wise, and that's really the key. If you mix up defenses on New England and they can't guess what's coming, you got them. And that was obvious this entire game. Because of the coverages that they were throwing at New England, constantly switching them up, they were able to get to Tom Brady with ease. And getting to Tom Brady was the third key. Tom Brady, I've been watching New England. I've been here for this whole dynasty with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I've watched all their playoff games. I've been here for this whole thing. I have never seen Tom Brady under so much pressure, under so much duress. I have never seen him. I've seen him get hit a lot, yes, but I've never seen him like on even the plays where he didn't get sacked. He did not have time to throw the ball. And for a team that really likes the big play, that hurts. And that's your three keys. The coverages, switching up the coverages, getting to Tom Brady, playing from out in front. That was the keys to this game. Obviously, a big, huge deal here was the missed field goal by Niskowski, by Niskowski here. He hasn't missed one. I don't even know how long. I don't think he missed one all season. And obviously that was huge because they had to go for two later on. And obviously that's where it ended. So that was huge. That was huge. But that's not the reason they lost. New England could never get into a rhythm on offense because Denver made them uncomfortable. Most notably made Tom Brady uncomfortable. There was no time for a play to develop, no time for Brady to throw the ball. They stopped the run. But Denver's defense won them this game, and Denver's defense, and they said it, their defense was going to be what wins them a Super Bowl. They said that. They said that all season long. Manning's not who he used to be. That's why they went and put all their money and focus on their defense. And it came big. It came up big in this game. It really, really did. That is a Super Bowl winning defense, what they got there in Denver. Phenomenal defense. And what did Denver say all year? If we hold the opponent to around 16 to 18 points, we hold them under 20 points, we should win the game. They held the Patriots to 18 points. They won the game. Now, to New England's credit, they did a very good job on Denver. Denver got the early touchdown and then got out touchdown field goal. They had 17-9 lead. And then they just held New England to a field goal. Denver to a field goal in the second half. But holding Denver to 20, I mean, I know even with Manning in its current state is pretty good. I mean, New England's defense did a good job in this game as well. Very good job. Key to this game also, C.J. Anderson running the ball for 72 yards. Kept the chains moving. Denver committed to the running game, even at times when I think a lot of us are wondering, what are you doing? But, you know, what people don't – I think Gary Kubiak – and Gary Kubiak has really shown me a lot this season because I haven't been always a big fan. I think he's a good coach. I never thought he was a great coach. Obviously with Houston, you know, there was years that everybody thought they'd do things and they didn't. You know, I always thought they were overrated. But with Denver, what he's shown me that he is a great coach. I mean, the things that he's done, Wade Phillips was the MVP of this game as the defensive coordinator. I've mentioned this before. Some guys are just better coordinators than head coaches. Wade Phillips is one of them. What he's done with this defense in Denver this year is amazing. And the game plan he had in this game, Wade Phillips was the MVP of this game. With all that he did with his defense in this game was amazing. But going back to Gary Kubiak for a second, I've never been overly impressed with him, but he's impressed me this season. He's done a phenomenal job with this team. And, you know, I guess it helps, too, because essentially have a second head coach on the field in Peyton Manning. But still, he's done a great job. Managing all of this, he's done a great job. And, you know, what you look at what Denver is and Manning, you know, this is probably it for him. But, and that's the thing, you know, Manning may not have the arm he used to have, but his strength has always been not necessarily in his arm, but in his ability to read the defense and ability to switch things up and to manage the game. And that's what Peyton Manning gives you, and that's what nobody else can give you. It's a calm presence in the face of anything that's thrown at you. And that's key. Denver didn't play great. Their defense played great. Their offense didn't just enough. And, you know, they had to stick with the running game just to balance things out because otherwise, I mean, Peyton wasn't getting anything. He had to run the ball a little bit just to at least run some time off the clock. So you have to stick to it. And God bless Gary Kubiak. He stuck to it even when people in that stadium were kind of, you know, getting real testy. But it paid off, and Denver moves on. And this is a huge win for the Denver Broncos. Because this is one more chance to do what they've been trying to do since they went out and got Peyton Manning and jettisoned Tim Tebow. They wanted to win a Super Bowl. You know, they got there a couple years ago and they got embarrassed by the Seattle Seahawks. This is about redemption for them to make up for that. And then last year, disappointment is they couldn't even get to the AFC Championship game. And then Manning wanting to have one more chance to get one more ring because he knows it's it. You could tell. This is one more for his legacy to go out on the highest possible note you can in your profession. And what a story it'll be going from, you know, think about a couple years before he got to Denver. We all thought his career might be over. He comes to Denver, has a resurgent year. Injuries start to plague him. And he starts to fall apart. And then this year, he, you know, kind of just manages to get by. Then he gets hurt again. You don't think you might not see him the rest of the year. Comes back as a backup in the final week of the season, leads Denver to the number 1 seed, and now leads them back to a Super Bowl. And if they can win it, what a story! What a compelling story going into the Super Bowl we have. And we'll see what happens. I mean, that's going to be the biggest story. Peyton Manning, and this is it for him. And the Broncos looking for redemption. Because that's what they really are looking for. It's redemption. Excuse me. Yawning on the air. You can tell it's Friday. But that's what it's about for them. And for New England, hey, you won it last year. You got to the AFC Championship game. You lost by 2 points. You're right there. They'll be back. We all know it. Every year, year in and year out, they're here. So what else can you say about that? So Denver advances in a classic. And if that's the way you end Brady versus Manning, then it was a fantastic ending. Nail-biting to the end. And that's the way these games always were between the two of them. Classic, nail-biters, drama, and it lived up to the hype. And if that's it, if that's the last time you see Tom Brady take on Peyton Manning, then it was a hell of an ending. And when the stakes were extremely high, too, so it makes it all the better. So that game was an amazing game. Even if it was a little more grittier and uglier than maybe a lot of people would like it to be. The second game, the NFC Championship, wasn't so much, wasn't so good. Now, here's the thing. I think we all knew, and I think I mentioned this last week. We all discussed, we all pretty much figured out. I think maybe like week 7, week 8, that this could be our NFC Championship game. You look back at the second half of the season. I think the Cardinals were probably the best team in football. And then there was a time right before the Cardinals took off that the Panthers looked like the best team in football. And then they went through that little stretch late in the season where, they won some game. I think they maybe won 3 or 4 games where they probably shouldn't have. And then they lost their first game to Atlanta. And then they came back with a great performance against Tampa. And then, and then their first playoff game last week, they didn't look so hot. They kind of had the same problem finishing the game off. Well, they didn't have to worry about finishing the game off in this game because this game was over in the first quarter. You talk about getting in a team's head and saying, you know what, we know we're better. We're the 1, you're the 2. We know we feel like we shouldn't even lost the game this season. We're just going to end this early. Arizona just got shellacked right out of the gate. 17-0 going into the second quarter is getting shellacked. They gave up 49 points in this game. This is a very good defensive team, Arizona. 49 points in this game. And they only scored 15. And that was and 8 of those were in the fourth quarter when it didn't even matter anymore. So Carolina wins this game 49-15. Really just and really what's if you look at this from a second, 4 interceptions by Carson Palmer for 1 touchdown, 235 yards. I think I like Carson Palmer. I think Carson Palmer was a really good quarterback. But you look back at last week. When they took on Green Bay. And how many picks he almost threw, the picks that he did throw, how many times did he almost give up that game? And then this week he throws 4 interceptions. I hate to say it, and I like Arizona, but I honestly, I think it's become quite apparent that Carson Palmer is not a guy that can handle the pressure of being a playoff quarterback. You look back at his time with Cincinnati, and then you look back at this now. This is not good. The laser focus, the precision, the kind of stuff that you see from Carson Palmer in the regular season is non-existent when it gets to these big games. And it's not the only reason why they lost, but whenever your quarterback throws 4 picks in a playoff game, that's a huge reason why. A huge reason why. And Larry Fitzgerald had no catches. I mean, that's all you need to know. Larry Fitzgerald had no catches. Carson Palmer had 4 picks. Carson Palmer had 4 fumbles. 2 fumbles, sorry. So he had 2 fumbles and 4 picks. Where are you going with that? Larry Fitzgerald had 4 receptions for 30 yards. I'm sorry, I thought I read the wrong thing here. I was going to say it's weird that he had no receptions. I thought he had some. Larry Fitzgerald had 4 receptions for 30 yards. Your high guy in receiving was David Johnson, 68 yards. Where are you going with that? Contrast that with Carolina. Corey Brown, 113 yards. Greg Olsen, 113 yards. Ted Ginn Jr., 52 yards. David Funch, 21 yards. Jerocco Cotchery, 17 yards. Mike Tolbert, 14 yards. Jonathan Stewart had 83 yards rushing. Cam Newton had 47 yards rushing. Ted Ginn Jr., 22 yards rushing. On the other side, David Johnson had 60 yards rushing. That was it. Cam Newton, 19 for 20, 335 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Turnovers killed the Cardinals in this game. Panther defense was there. We all know it's a good one. But let's be honest here. Even if you have a sucky defense, if the quarterback for the other team throws 4 picks and fumbles the ball twice, your chance are you're going to win the game. Carson Palmer stunk. He stunk the week before, and he stunk this week. And Carolina and Arizona seriously has to look at this here. Everybody likes Carson Palmer. He's a great guy, and he is a good quarterback. He should be able to win playoff games in this league, even win a Super Bowl. He's good enough. But it's clear, it is abundantly clear he cannot handle the pressure. You can't make this up. He's never had a decent playoff game. He's never even looked good in these playoff games. He looks awful from start to finish. He looks completely lost and rattled in these games. And you can't have that. Arizona is a team that should be a Super Bowl team. They should be a potential Super Bowl team again next year. But you can't put trust in Carson Palmer. He's an older quarterback. He ain't going to change now. This isn't a young quarterback situation where it's like, oh, well, it's his first time in the playoffs. No, he's been in the league long enough. He's had chances. He has not looked good. They have got to, I honestly think they have to go get another quarterback. And that pains me because I like Carson Palmer. I don't think they can entrust this team to Carson Palmer in a playoff situation. And this is a team that should be making the playoffs at least the next couple of years. You can't trust this team to Carson Palmer in a big game situation. Not after what you've seen this postseason. You can't. Because that was the biggest, the turnovers, most of which were related to him, were the reason why Arizona lost, or at least lost by as much as they did. Carolina's defense, of course, crucial. We all knew it would be good. It's good. It's always good. But you helped them as far as scoring goes. And they didn't need any help. This year, they haven't needed help scoring. Their offense is coming to its own this year behind Cam Newton, who's had a great year and will be the NFL MVP. Their offense had no trouble scoring, but you practically handed them half their points just with the turnovers alone. An absolutely abysmal showing for the Arizona Cardinals, mostly due to the quarterback play. And Carolina took what was given to them. Cam Newton with a great performance. Just all-around great performance. Not much you can say. Turnovers damned the Cardinals. The performance of Palmer damned the Cardinals. And Carolina just took full advantage of it, and the game was over before you even blinked. So that leaves you with the Super Bowl featuring 2 number 1 seeds, and we had that a couple years ago. And I guess that's, if you're one of these people that wants to see the 2 best teams, we got the 2 best records going up against each other. So I guess that's appropriate. So your Super Bowl is Carolina for the NFC versus Denver for the AFC. Now, as far as our predictions go for last week, I picked the Broncos and the Cardinals. Jeff Tech picked the Patriots and the Panthers. So I went 1-1. He went 1-1. So that leaves us with through last weekend, championship weekend. I am 65-50. He is 69-47. So what's going to be on the line here for our picks? And again, for those that might not know by now, I've been living under a rock. Jeff Tech is our former technical producer from our days on Talk Show. But he was still working on the show when we started the football. When we started this year's football stuff in September, and we didn't want to just stop him being a part of it, so we decided to keep going with it. He just sends me his picks before the show, and I just bring them up to you all so we can continue to compete. I don't think we'll do it again like that next year. I'll just probably eat my picks, and it won't be a competition. But Just for our longtime fans and just for continuity purposes, we decided to keep it up through the rest of the season. So so this is what's going to happen. All right. And this is where it gets difficult. Thankfully, I don't, nobody has to be forced to pick a team they don't want to pick, because I already got Jeff Tech's pick, and he's picking a different team to win the Super Bowl than I am. But in the past, if we both wanted to pick the same team, one of us had to change our pick, because if you're going to try to go for it all here and go for the season win here, you need to have different picks. So, but thankfully we don't have to do that because we both pick different teams. So here's what's going to happen. Whoever's team that's picked, like, okay, whichever person has the right team that wins the Super Bowl will get essentially what amounts to 5 wins. Meaning, let's say in a normal week, if we pick 6 games and I got 5 right and got 1 wrong, I'd get 5 wins added to my total for the season. Well, that's what's on the line this week, is 5 wins. That game is worth, Super Bowl is worth 5 wins. And the reason why it's worth 5 wins is because I'm 4 games back of Jeff Tech. So in order for me to even have a chance at winning and to have something on the line, we have to do it that way. So I will be going, what will be on the line is 5 wins. So if my team that I pick wins the Super Bowl, I get 5 wins, Jeff Tech gets 5 losses, and I win this year's Pick 6 NFL Football Challenge. If Jeff Tech's team wins, then he gets 5 more wins. I get 5 losses, and it's not close. He ends up winning by 9 games. That's how it's going to work. So if you're confused, you can email me, but that's the way it's going to work. That's the only way it can work, where there's something on the line in the Super Bowl for us. So like I said, now that I got that explained, we can talk about the game, and we can make some picks. Super Bowl, Carolina, Denver, 1 versus 1. And boy, if Carolina were to win this game, boy, they're going to regret not that loss to Atlanta, because they would have had the perfect season. Carolina was 8-0 at home. I mean, unbeaten at home. Now they go on the road. In a neutral site game to Santa Clara. Obviously for Denver, they're a little bit closer. It's on their coast, but still, it's not a home game for anybody, really. Although I suspect that Denver will probably travel a little bit more in the way of fans. But then again, the Super Bowl is weird because you don't get as many of the team's fans. You get a lot of general fans that bought tickets well in advance and all that stuff. So on paper, it's hard to read this game, because you look at Carolina, and up until this year, we always looked at Carolina as more of a defensive team, and they're still a phenomenal defensive team. But offensively, they've come into their own this season. They can put up points with the best of them, especially if they can either turn over the ball like they did against Arizona last week. And then there's Denver, who has become more of a defensive-oriented team, although even with Manning in its current state, can still put up points when need be. So it's hard to tell what kind of game we're going to get here. Are we going to get a back and forth, up and down game? Or is it going to be a gritty, ugly, lower scoring kind of game, which it could totally be with these two defenses, which are, I think, the 2 best defenses in the league. So it shows you defense wins championships. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell what kind of game. And then you throw in the fact that there's going to be 2 weeks between when both these teams played, and sometimes teams can be rusty, so that could play into it too. Injury-wise, there's really no thankfully, thank God, there's no drastic injuries on either side. So I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue either way. So I don't think there'll be much to change my way of thinking as far as this game goes over the next week, or many people's ways of thinking over the next week. So no storylines there to look at. We already talked about it. Peyton Manning, could this be his last game, last season? One last chance at a Super Bowl. Redemption for Denver after their poor performance in the Super Bowl a couple years ago, and then not getting there last year. Carolina thinking, want to prove that they're one of the best teams ever in the history of the NFL. Cam Newton looking to complete his journey to proving all the naysayers wrong, who felt like he couldn't do much in this league at all. I being one of them, because I didn't think he'd be this good, and he is. Um, and Carolina's been playing with a chip on their shoulder all season long, trying to prove doubters wrong, feel like they don't get the respect they deserve. So, there's all that on the line. And two coaches that have never won that as a coach have never won Super Bowls. That's on the line too. I think it's going to be a close game. I don't expect a blowout game. The question, like I said, the question is what kind of game you get. Do you get a wide open kind of offensive game? Even with these two defenses, that's still possible. Or do you get, a gritty kind of uglyish kind of game that's more defensive oriented because these two defenses are really that good. They could make it that kind of game. My anticipation is that we get more of a lower scoring game. I think this game will be about the defenses because and I see a lot of people that are like, okay, Denver's big thing is they go after the quarterback. Well, Cam Newton's a mobile quarterback, so it's not going to be as easy for them to get to him. True, but at the same time, Denver is not like the Giants were a few years ago, where if they didn't get to the quarterback, they were done. Okay, that's their first line of defense, but they covered in the passing game extremely well, and they're very adept at stopping the run as well. So, they'll deal with Cam Newton running here and there, and they'll make sure to try to contain. And I think that's really the key for Denver is if you're going to go after Cam Newton, make sure you can contain him, that he's not going to beat you for about 17, 18 yards down the field running the ball himself. That's what they got to do. They got to really, if he's scrambling, they have got to find a way to contain Cam Newton. Because if you don't contain Cam Newton, then your pass rush is pretty much meaningless because he's going to be getting first downs. You can't be doing that. If you're going to rush the quarterback, you want to make sure that you're preventing the first downs. You want to make sure that he's not getting the drive going on his own. So hate when you have the sniffles and you're trying to do a podcast. My God. But anyway, that to me is a big key. A huge key is that if they're gonna, given Denver's what Denver's most crucial aspect of their defense is their ability to get to the quarterback. You have got to make sure that if Cam Newton starts to scramble, that you contain him. That's the biggest thing for Denver. I have no doubt defensively they're going to play very well. They'll cover in the passing game. They'll prevent the run. The only thing is don't let Cam Newton beat you down the field with his legs. Don't let him do that. Contain him. That's the key for Denver. The key for Carolina is this. Peyton Manning's very gifted at reading defenses. Doesn't matter how complex or how good your defense is. He will read your defense. He is going to make adjustments on the fly. This is going to work very much against Carolina here because they almost have to lean back. They have to lean back and go, all right, we have to wait back because he's going to see us and he's going to change the play anyway. So they are essentially, I'm not saying play a prevent, but they have to wait back and kind of let things develop. They're going to have to play it that kind of way. So they're going to give up a little bit more than they probably normally would like to or normally would in general. But I think that's going to better serve them and be a little more safer so that they don't get beat down the field. And even though Peyton doesn't have the arm he used to, even though, he doesn't look to throw the ball down the field as much, he will if something's there. And if Carolina isn't careful, there will be plays downfield, and that's not what they want to see happen. So it's better for them to wait back and just let the play come to them instead of trying to blitz all the time or go all in and Peyton Manning makes an adjustment. All of a sudden, you have a receiver downfield wide open, and away you go. So Carolina has to be patient, let the play come to them, wait back a little bit on defense, be maybe a little bit less aggressive than you normally would. That's a huge key for them. Another huge key for them on offense is this. My thing wasn't, and the flip side to what I mentioned in regards to Denver. Denver's going to come after Newton. So what do? I'd run some plays right out of the gate where you have Cam Newton active. I'd run some plays where Cam Newton runs the ball himself right out of the gate. because then Denver knows, you know what? It's not even that he's running the ball already, and he's not even scrambling. This ain't scrambles. These are actual design plays for Cam Newton. And then you might nip the pass rush right in the bud right out of the gate. They might decide, hey, we're going to lay off the pass rush for it because we already got Cam Newton running and getting first downs on his own. We can't be going after Cam Newton right now. It'll open things up downfield, and you might get a couple of guys downfield and start opening up the whole offense without even having to worry about Cam Newton scrambling. So that would be what I would do, is run some plays early on in the game when you're on offense for Cam Newton running the ball himself. Because then you're going to get Denver thinking, all right, they're doing it on their own. This ain't even scrambling. They're calling plays for Newton. We can't be blitzing because we're giving up too much yardage to him already. So that would be my thing. Those would be my keys for Carolina, suggestions for Carolina. And again, I've already mentioned my suggestions or my keys for the Broncos. So we talked about the storylines. We talked about, I think, the keys for each team are. I mentioned what kind of game I think we're going to get. Again, that's really the hardest thing to figure out. I think it's going to be a good Super Bowl. I think it's going to be a competitive one, no matter what kind of game we get. I don't think it'll be a blowout, which is a good thing. I think it'll be a good representation of the league. You got one seed versus one seed, and that's, some people like that. They like when it's like that. So, some teams like it when you get a wild card in there or something, so like a 6 seed or something. But I digress. It is what it is, and I think it's going to be a game that's going to be a very interesting watch, not just because of the commercials, which you never want to happen. Even though we all love the commercials, you never want the game to be interesting just because of the commercials. You want it to be interesting because of the game, and then the commercials is the cherry on top of the sundae. So let's hope it's a good event. Let's hope the game's good. Let's hope the commercials are good. Let's hope you got Coldplay at halftime. Let's hope the whole event is good and runs smoothly. And it's a great venue out there in Santa Clara. They hosted WrestleMania last year and did a good job. And this year they get the Super Bowl. It's always weird how WrestleMania and the Super Bowl always tend to fluctuate where they go. But they always end up either where the Super Bowl is, where WrestleMania ends up, where WrestleMania's Super Bowl ends up next year. It's always weird how they kind of like that. But I digress. All right, so time to make some picks here. Jeff Tech has picked Carolina to win the Super Bowl. I'm going to pick Denver. As I said, we both went with different picks, which is good. It makes things a lot easier. I'm going with Denver. And the reason why I'm going with Denver is because I'm going with Denver because by the way, it's shocking that Jeff Tech went with Carolina, because if you've known him over the years, he's always picked the Colts and he's always picked the Broncos. In the last couple of weeks, he hasn't picked the Broncos. And the Broncos he picked because of Peyton Manning, but I guess he's not feeling too confident about that. I'm picking Denver because of the fact that one of the things that we criticize Carolina for, especially in the second half of the season, is inability to finish games. Last week, it didn't rear its ugly head because they got out in front by so much on Arizona that, even they couldn't blow that. And Arizona kept turning over the football. The week before, though, in their game against Seattle, they struggled to finish, and Seattle almost made it all the way back. And then we saw what happened in the second half of the season, where they won a lot of games by the skin of their teeth, where they held on. And then they lost the game to the Falcons because, again, they couldn't finish. That was the big thing with the Carolina Panthers. They didn't finish games well. They let teams back in when they shouldn't have, and one time it came back to bite them. It probably should have came back to bite them far more than it has. But I've always said this. Your weaknesses in sports have a way to always come back to bite you at the worst possible time if you haven't addressed them. Carolina hasn't addressed them. Not in a big situation like that. In a big situation like this, that could be hurtful. Very hurtful. They have yet to prove that they can finish a game all the way through. Last week, They're just out in front by so much it didn't matter. And the other team couldn't hold on to the football. The week before, they showed you again that they struggled to finish games. And now, what are we going to get here? No matter what kind of game this is, like I said, I feel like it's going to be a close game. No matter what kind of game this is, whether it's gritty, lower scoring, grind it out, or a more wide open offensive kind of game, I anticipate it being close. If Carolina gets out in front and can't manage to finish the game, like they've shown problems with during the second half of the season, then that just leaves the door wide open for Denver. And that's ultimately what swung me in favor of Denver is I don't trust Carolina late in the game, even with a lead, to be able to close it out. So because of that, I'm picking Denver. Because I know if Denver's in it or in front, they can close it out. They have a guy at the quarterback position, and that's not a knock to say a knock on Cam Newton. Cam Newton's been unbelievable this year, but we know Peyton Manning is a calming presence, and we know that Peyton Manning's a leader. We know Peyton Manning can help guide this team and help them finish this game off with finish it off, wrap it with a bow, and say, here you go. Cam Newton, while he's become a good leader, we've seen this year Carolina has not been able to finish games. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. Maybe, and if there's ever a time to prove people wrong, it's right here. But from what I've seen this year, they haven't addressed it yet. And you saw it 2 weeks ago against Seattle in their first playoff game that they just couldn't finish the game. Seattle almost came all the way back from a big deficit. And if you can't finish football games, even with a big lead, if you can't tie them up with a little bow and say, okay, sayonara, then that's something that comes back to bite you. It's come back to bite a lot of teams in all sports over the years. And that's why I'm picking Denver, because I trust them late in the game more with Peyton Manning at the quarterback position to close out a game. Whether they're out in front or even behind, come from behind, close out a game. I trust Denver more with that than I do Carolina. And that, to me, was the key, and that's why I'm going with Denver. So Denver for me, Carolina for Jeff Tech. Again, 5 wins on the line. The winner will get 5 wins. The loser, 5 losses. If I get 5 wins, I win the Pick 6 NFL Challenge for this year. If Jeff Tech gets the 5 wins, he wins it. So I think it's, again, as I mentioned, I think it's going to be an unbelievable Super Bowl. It'll be a lot of fun. I hope it lives up to my expectations for it, and we'll see what we get. We'll obviously talk about it. Again, this is our last Football Blitz show. We'll give a little bit of a Super Bowl preview and talk a little bit more about it on Tuesday's primetime show when we do our usual sports stuff. And then we'll talk about the fallout from it, the commercials, all that stuff on the following Tuesday show after the Super Bowl. So, yeah, so that's pretty much it. We covered last week's games. We looked ahead to the Super Bowl. We set the stage. I don't think there's any questions or comments. As I said before before the show, I didn't see anything in the email box. I didn't see anything in the email box or Facebook or Twitter before the show that I thought was anything that was really worth bringing up that we weren't going to already address. Well, here's one that somebody sent in during the show. So, you know what? We won't do a full segment. We'll address one question or comment from our list. Actually, two. There's 2 here that we can address. 3. There's 3. All right, so here you go. So, okay, we are going to do a Q&A segment because people are sent us stuff during the show. Thank you for that, because we didn't have much of anything before the show that wasn't already going to be covered. So, the Jacksonville Jaguars have unveiled plans for new facilities to help lure NFL draft picks to help lure the NFL draft back to the city. Up top, I should. Oh, pardon me. Let me say it. The Jacksonville Jaguars unveiled plans for an indoor practice facility in a 5,000 seat amphitheater that is scheduled to break ground 2016 in an attempt to bring the NFL draft to the city. Why is there so much focus on trying to bring an NFL draft to cities now? It's almost like a Super Bowl or an Olympics selection process. Shouldn't they be more in line with trying to get the Super Bowl and not necessarily an event that barely anybody seems to watch? Well, if you've seen the ratings, a lot of people watch the NFL draft. I don't understand it. I think we talked about that on the show for the last few years. I don't understand it. I can't watch it. I could watch the NBA draft because it's a couple hours and then it's done. But the NFL draft, I mean, I watched the first round. That's pretty much it. I just keep track of the rest of it, to be honest. The NFL draft has become a huge deal in recent years. With the advent of how big the NFL has become, it's become a big deal. Now, I will agree with you that, if I'm a city, I'd be far more interested in making sure I have things in place to try to get a Super Bowl before I worry about NFL draft. Okay, talk about settling. All right, especially Jacksonville, who that's right in the wheelhouse of where they'd like to host Super Bowls, warm weather cities, that kind of thing. I guess the facilities that they're building wouldn't be enough to pursue a Super Bowl, which is why I'd probably go all the way and just try to make it so you can host a Super Bowl. Try to build some more facilities to do that. I guess the claim was made that what it takes to for Jacksonville to get a Super Bowl would just take too much time, money, and energy, and it would set them up for failure. Um, for me, I would just try to do that. I mean, I don't see how it would be a failure if you get the right ducks in a row. But then again, you know what? If you think you can make a profit off it, think can help, then go for. I mean, I guess go for the draft. But I mean, that to me is setting your sights too low. And I understand that there's a lot of time, money, and energy involved. Well, you don't get anything big if you don't try. And by investing, and it seems like they don't want to go all the way. It seems like they just want to do something to try to bring attention to Jacksonville, to the area as far as the league goes. And this is kind of like, well, we can do this, and it's going to be a lot cheaper, and it's going to be a lot less time consuming, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Even though we'd like a Super Bowl, we don't want to go all the way with it. We don't want to do all this, all that involves. It's such a long process, blah, 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 blah. But, we can have the NFL draft. I mean, try selling that to your fans. I mean, Jacksonville fans have had it rough as it is, but try selling that to your fans. Oh, well, we're going to build this new facility, we don't, and that'll be enough to get us the NFL draft. But, I mean, we could go for a Super Bowl, but it's just too much time, money, and energy. It's better served doing something else. Let Tampa or Miami have it. We could have other NFL events here, like the NFL draft. And, your fans are probably looking at you like, really? Yeah. I want the NFL draft when we could have a Super Bowl. If you're going to invest this much money and time and such, and the project as it currently stands, just for an NFL draft, why don't you just go all the way and invest a little bit, some more, and go for the Super Bowl, which is what people would really want. It's a very half-ass kind of thing, to be honest. I don't get that. Like, go for it. Get the facilities necessary and what you need to get a Super Bowl. And then if you want to host the NFL draft that you've hosted a Super Bowl, then by all means go for it. But I mean, that's just, I don't understand that. Well, takes too much time, energy, and money to go for a Super Bowl. But we're going to invest this time, energy, and money into different new facilities, several new facilities to get the NFL draft here. So you're going to invest money and time for an event that people are not going to. Let's be honest, you make far more off the NFL after Super Bowl than you ever would after the draft. I don't get that. You're willing to invest all money, time, and energy and facilities for an NFL draft? Who the hell does that? I've never even heard of that. Like I've heard of people go, "Oh, I want these facilities so we can have the Olympics, or I want these facilities so we can have the World Games, or the Super Bowl, whatever." Never ever have I heard somebody say, "Well, I want to have these new facilities so we can get events like the NFL draft." For real? How stupid. That's a hard sell to your fans. My goodness. Um, a story released today says the NFL says diagnosed concussions were way up this season. The 2015 total was 271, a figure that includes all preseason and regular season games, as well as all practice and the start of training camp. This is a rise of nearly 32% in the NFL this season. Um, let's see. 2015 total was 271, as I said. The league had previously boasted of a decrease in reported concussions in both 2014, where it was 206, and 2013, where it was 229. There have been 261 concussions in 2012. There was no reason said for what people think was the reason. What the league said was the reason for this. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think that this has any? Do you think that this has anything to do with more? Do you think this has anything to do with what seems like a more aggressive nature of play, despite the rules designed to protect players, or do you think it's simply coincidental? That was a lot. That was a long question with a lot of detail. I did see the article about this morning. In fact, I'm going to pull it up right now. Just give me 1 second here. I want to pull this up because this is important to note here. All right. All right. So here's the article. It's from ESPN.com. Of the 271 concussions in 2015, 234 occurred in games and 37 in practice. The report listed the following as the most common causes during regular season games: contact with another helmet, 92 cases; contact with the playing surface, 29; contact with a shoulder, 23. Also, keep in mind ACL injuries rose from 49 last season to 56 in 2015. We're still lower in 2013. There were 170 MCL injuries in 2015, up from 139 last season. All right. Now, as far as ACL and MCL, that's just, that could be, that's it. That could just be coincidental. You look at 234, okay, 37 were in practice and 92 were from another helmet. What that tells you is that, and we all know that things happen in the heat of the game, okay? Incidental. There's not everybody is aggressively trying to hurt somebody or make a statement. Sometimes you can't stop yourself in time and you run into another player. So that a lot of that's accidental, yes. But then there's also these guys that don't care about the rules, and some of them are outraged about it. Makes them almost want to do it more. The thing is, and that's really what accounts for that biggest amount. And then you got, you start talking about contact with shoulder, contact with point. Here's the thing too. I mean, we're in an age now where we got the best. I mean, you got players in ridiculous shape. Okay, big and tall, and then you got linemen that are just big, and and the bigger they are, and then the bigger, even guys that are pumping iron and huge, like very well built. The problem with that is that means that if you run into them, it's not pretty. All right. The more athletic we all get, the more athletic these players get, the more muscle they put on. It actually is more dangerous. It's actually more dangerous as far as concussions go if you run into them. So, I think a lot of it, maybe 60% of it's probably coincidental. And I think, maybe a good 20 or 30 is some guys just don't like the rules, don't care. Not going to change the way they play, and then the rest of it is just I don't know what to make of it. I don't think the vast majority of NFL players are I don't think there's any reason think that they're doing it on purpose or anything. It is alarming. They've done so much to try to prevent concussions. But see, here's the thing, and here's the bottom line. I don't think you can ever. You're always going to have a lot of concussions. It's a contact sport. You always have a lot of injuries. You go into this if you sign up to play football, okay, or any contact sport. You got to know what you're getting into. I'm not saying I don't feel bad for people that have concussions, everything like that. I feel awful for them. But let's be honest here. If you're worried about this and you don't like this and you're not comfortable, you should be playing football. Because even if you have all these rules and all these things designed to protect the players, you can't. Things can still happen in the heat of the moment. Accidents can still happen, and it's the way it is. So you can do all that you want to do, but you can't prevent these things from happening, no matter how hard you want to. I think, and that's really all I can say about it. I mean, I really don't know what else to say about this. I don't think there's any one particular reason why they're up. It could just be coincidental. It could just be, you know, again, more incidental contact that just went wrong. I don't know. I don't know. It was said that Raiders owner Mark Davis is going to meet with Las Vegas. Um, but Okay, let me rephrase it. Of a Las Vegas Sands chairman and CEO Sheldon Alderson, who wants to build a $1 billion dome stadium on the UNLV campus. And was believed to be a way for the Raiders to see if there's interest in them moving to Las Vegas. What would you think about an NFL team in Vegas, especially the Raiders? And do you think more pro sports teams would follow if this were to happen? The Raiders really want to move. I mean, they're looking at touring locations around the valley for a new home. That's just Vegas, okay? And UNLV wants a new place for their football program anyway. So, one of the reasons why professional sports teams stayed out of Vegas, obviously because of the gambling component. There's a lot of distractions. They're afraid of how it would work out. I honestly believe that in the next 10 years we're going to have a pro sports team in Vegas because it's been trending in that direction. This is just another sign that it is, that more people are giving credence to it. But going along with that, I think if that were to happen, you're going to see some safeguards put into place to try to alleviate any potential issues that could arise from, gambling and all that stuff. And because let's be honest, that's everybody in professional sports. All officials in professional sports, coaches, owners, etc., I've always worried about, well, if we ever, and I'm sure there's been plenty of interest. In theory, having professional sports teams in Vegas seems like, it's Las Vegas. It's great. You can fill an arena. It's a great entertainment venue, but then there's all these distractions, and then you realize, wow, this could be a problem, even though financially it could be good. Let me just say, if it ever happens, and I do think it will in the next 10 years, I believe that there will be safeguards in place to try to nip any potential issues in the bud. Any franchise, any owner, anybody would agree to bring their franchise there without safeguards to try to prevent it from completely just coming apart at the seams. They'd have to have some way of addressing the concerns that they've had and will still no doubt have. And that's and that I completely understand. I don't think it's a bad idea to have a professional sports team, even if it's whether that be an NFL team like the Raiders or somebody else. I don't think it's a bad thing. But whatever franchise elects to do it needs to protect themselves. They have to have safeguards in place to make sure that it doesn't end up blowing up in their face. But I do think we're heading in that direction. I think the Raiders would be. I mean, I'd hate to lose the Raiders from Oakland because they're the Oakland Raiders, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it develops. I don't think the Raiders are going to be the team that does it. Personally, but for what it's worth, I do think the Raiders are moving though. I thought you asked me a couple weeks ago. I thought it'd be the Chargers, but I don't think it's going to be the Chargers. I think the Raiders are. The Raiders are being a far more active about it than the Chargers are. When you're going scouting locations, I think the Raiders are going to move, but I just don't know where. I don't think it's going to be Vegas. All right. So we addressed a couple of questions that you all sent in. And a lot of these stories that you all mentioned are on ESPN.com. So if you're somebody that, wants to check out some more information on some of these things I brought up in this Q&A portion of the show, by all means, go ahead and check these stories out. They're at ESPN.com and several other news outlets. So, all right. So we covered everything we wanted to cover today. So that's it for this show, our last Football Blitz show. As always, though, now the show might be over and this might be the end of the Football Blitz, but we still have, as I mentioned, our Tuesday and Thursday night primetime shows during the week, broadcasting and streaming live here on Google Hangouts and YouTube at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Or, of course, you can check them out on archive on here as well, and, of course, on Podbean and iTunes, too. So for you Football Blitz fans that maybe never tune into any of our primetime shows, why don't you give them a try? We'll have some football stuff for you down there from time to time, especially over the next couple of weeks with the Super Bowl and all that, and any off-season stuff we'll cover on there. So if you're interested, if you want to continue with us and our coverage of football, hopefully you'll tune into our primetime shows on Tuesday and Thursday, and you can still get that coverage until we pick up with the Football Blitz again in the fall. All right, so that's it for the show today. As always, the show might be over. It does not mean you have to stop interacting or contributing with us or the show. You can continue to do so by sending us feedback, questions about the show, scheduling the show, topic ideas, breaking news items, related to sports, entertainment, wrestling. Make sure we cover. We're doing the 60th in the Spotlight Film Awards. We'd like to be if you have any questions or such about that, you can ask us about that. If you're involved in that already and helping to decide the nominees or the winners, remember you can only make submissions via email, so make sure you remember that particular rule. So email, Facebook, and Twitter is the way to get in touch with us. You can reactions or comments, things we send us, or any of these things you can do by email, Facebook, and Twitter. You can email us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. And please remember to use the hashtags, hashtag itspotlight411, hashtag ITS5, representing our 5th anniversary on the air as a podcast. Or you can also, if you're talking about maybe our Football Blitz show, maybe giving an opinion on that, you can use hashtag ITS Football Blitz. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook and make sure you like our fan page upon finding. Again, we encourage you to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest information about our show. If you're somebody that wants to catch up on our show, maybe you missed an episode or two, maybe you want to rewatch an episode, or if you're a Football Blitz fan and maybe wants to give our primetime shows a try, you can check them out on here in archive as well. Or, of course, you always check them out live while they're streaming live on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. You can do all of them things. Right here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube. Just search for In the Spotlight 411. You'll have access to our channels on both sites and access to all the episodes that we've broadcast and streamed since we got here to Google Hangouts and YouTube back in October. So feel free to catch up or check out our episodes here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube anytime you wish. All episodes since we debuted here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube are up on our channels on both sites. So you can find all the episodes since October on both sites. If you're somebody that is more comfortable with the audio format of podcasts, or maybe you're somebody that wants to check out some of our older shows from before we moved here to Google Hangouts and YouTube, then you can check us also out on Podbean and iTunes, where you can find us in audio format. You can find both our current episodes, recent episodes, episodes since October, and those episodes that we have, and episodes from the last 5 years before our move to Google Hangouts and YouTube October. You can find all those episodes on Podbean and iTunes. So all our episodes from the last 5 years, all episodes from back when we were in the spotlight with Brian Gardner on Blog Talk Radio, TalkShoe, Libsyn, everything before October, and of course all of our Google Hangouts YouTube episodes from October till now. All of them can be found on Podbean and on iTunes in audio format in order from the most recent date to the oldest. Keep in mind on iTunes, you probably have to search for older episodes, In the Spotlight with Brian Gardner episodes separately from the In the Spotlight 4-1 episodes, but just keep that in mind. But they're all up there on iTunes, so you can find them on there. And then Podbean, they're all in one place on one page, so you can find them all, again, in order from most recent to the oldest. So maybe you're a longtime fan that wants to listen again to old episodes. Again, a new fan that maybe wants to check out some of our older episodes to see what we were all about before we got to Google Hangouts and YouTube. Whatever the case, Podbean, you can find all of our episodes from our 5 years that we've been on the air, including our recent episodes. And then iTunes, you can find our recent episodes under In the Spotlight 4-1 and our older episodes under In the Spotlight with Brian Gardner. So keep all that in mind for catching up, or whether it's audio or streaming, or watching or listening to episodes again. Or again, if you're somebody that wants to give our primetime shows a shot and never have before, you can either live stream them on Google Hangouts and YouTube, or watch them later on an archive on Google Hangouts or YouTube, or listen to them on Podbean and iTunes whenever you wish. So I know that's a lot of information, but trying to keep you all informed. So keep all that in mind. All right, so that's it. I want to pat myself on the back for a great show and thank all of you for your continued support and contributions to the show. Thank you so much for watching. To those that will be watching this in archive later, thank you. To those that will be listening to this in archive on either Podbean or iTunes, thank you as well. To those that watched live, thank you. We appreciate it. And to those that were with us this whole Football Blitz season, this whole football season, thank you so much. I mentioned this earlier in the show. I really do appreciate it. I know it wasn't an easy transition doing the show and everything. Sometimes it wasn't always easy to follow the show because of the time and everything, but I do appreciate it. Thank you so much. And again, I anticipate bringing the show back, the Football Blitz show back in the fall. I'll keep you up to date on that as we get closer. And again, to those that want continued football coverage of the Super Bowl and beyond, check out our Tuesday and Thursday primetime shows, broadcasting and streaming live here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. And we'll be covering, we'll give another Super Bowl preview on Tuesday. We'll talk about the fall from the Super Bowl, anything from the NFL offseason going forward, we'll cover on there. And if you don't want to stream us live, you can obviously always check us out in archive on Hangouts and YouTube, or obviously on Podbean and iTunes as well. So please, I encourage any of you that are just strictly Football Blitz fans that never tried our primetime shows, give them a chance. You might like them. If you don't, that's fine too. Just keep up to date on our show on Facebook and Twitter. We'll let you know when the Football Blitz will be back in the fall. Again, thank you to all those, whether you're an exclusive Football Blitz, In the Spotlight Football Blitz fan, or an In the Spotlight fan in general that tunes into all shows. Whatever your reason, if you ever watched, thank you so much. Or listen, thank you so much. That's it for the Football Blitz for this year, for this season. Again, we will still continue with our In the Spotlight 4-1 shows in prime time on Tuesdays and Thursdays, broadcasting and streaming live here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Our next show will be this coming Tuesday, our sports wrestling primetime show. We'll obviously talk wrestling side of things. We'll talk about Monday Night Raw, any other additional wrestling news worthy of being talked about. Sports-wise, we'll do another Super Bowl preview, some more football stuff, some NBA. Will be the return of our Bracket Bugle, our college basketball bubble watch segment on Tuesday. So it'll be a full show on Tuesday. You'll want to tune in for that. And the next Thursday will be our entertainment show. We give you our usual entertainment content, box office beat, TV highlights of the week, entertainment news discussion, all that good stuff. So that's what's coming up next week on our primetime show. So that's it for the Football Blitz for this season. That's it for this week as far as shows go. I hope you all have a great rest of your Friday, a great weekend, and a great start to your week next week. Thank you so much again to all the Football Blitz fans, and hopefully you'll continue on with us as we continue our primetime shows. But if not, hopefully we'll see you back in the fall for the Football Blitz. I hope you have a great rest of your Friday, great weekend, great start to week next week. We'll see you back here for our next show in prime time, broadcasting and streaming live here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time this coming Tuesday, February the 2nd, our first show of February. Until then, have a good day, everybody.